Okay.
All right, the Protection and Policy meeting for October 22nd, 2018 is now in session. It's 5:32-ish. Roll call. Is Alder Stevens here?
Here.
Is Alder Vanderleest here?
Here.
Is Alder Stoyer here?
Here.
Alder Scannell is also here. We're all present and accounted for. Take a motion to approve our agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Alder Vanderleest, second by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. I'll take an approval.
One second, I'm sorry.
Yep, sorry, no, I'm going too fast. I need to slow down. I'm so excited. There's so many people here.
Okay, approval of the minutes.
Take a motion to approve the minutes of October 8th, 2018 Protection and Policy meeting. Motion to approve by Alder Vanderleest, second by Alder Stevens. All that approve? Aye. Opposed? Our minutes are approved. On to regular business in a minute.
We're good to go?
On to regular business. Item number 1, discussion with possible action on General Ordinance number 28-18, an ordinance to repeal and recreate Section 6.15 Green Bay Municipal Code relating to special events, previously discussed at the October 8th Protection and Policy meeting. Staff, anything?
So I have lots to present, but I think that there are some people here who
So we're
want
here.
to talk, and they have to go upstairs to another meeting, so I think they should go first.
We'll make a motion, open the floor.
Motion open the floor by Alder Stoyer, second by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The floor is now open. Anyone wishing to discuss this, please step on up.
I'm not one that has to leave at 6.
Oh, well,
That's fine.
Leah gave, I mean, go ahead, yeah. I'm gonna say a lot of the same things and I'll keep it quick.
okay. Your name and address, please.
Chelsea Koken, home address or?
Yes, home address.
Home address 1664 Birchwood Drive, Green Bay,
Okay.
54304.
Do we need the zip? No. But thanks.
So a couple things, of course. This I had first seen about a week and a half ago. It sounds like Celestine may be presenting some revisions that are going to make a difference. But the biggest things are, first, the cost, that fee schedule. So while the permit fees do impact us, it's the fees that now are going to be incurred through that security and medical. That's seems to be required within this revision. So we currently, I'm with On Broadway. I suppose I should start with that. So I'm the marketing and events manager for On Broadway. We do 37 special events in the downtown area each year, all of which that require a special event permit. Biggest event that we do most often is that farmers market on Wednesday evenings. So we do 18 weeks of that. We have no to minimal issues at this event. So to require what's shown as 14 to 21 or 21 to 30 police officers at this event, I feel not only would look out of place, but be unnecessary for the number of officers. If you look at a quick financial breakdown of what we spend now versus what this would likely cause us to need to spend, it's a difference of about $150,000.
For the year.
150,000.
For the year.
So, again, those are rough numbers based on what we know. We currently have 2 off-duty police officers, but from what I understand, they're able to do every single thing that an on-duty police officer, as far as call 911, arrest someone if that's the case, interact and act within the event with the public. So, and we, again, have minimal issues. We have things like heat exhaustion, or an older woman tripped and they want an ambulance, so the officer's the closest by and they're the ones that contacts 911. So not only can we not afford then to run that event in a profitable means, we can't host that event. If we can't host these events, we can't be profitable as an organization, and we can no longer operate as an organization. So the farmers market is one example of that. But again, we do 37. So that's about half of the events that we do, and we're going to incur those costs for all of them. So I think not only is the cost there, but I just personally feel that 21 to 30 officers at an event that size, I don't know if any of you have been to the events, there's a lot of people there, but it is only a 2-block by 1 or 2 block footprint. To have 30 officers in that footprint was just almost make the event feel uncomfortable. And then the supervisors that are required as well, I just don't see the need for that many. Now, if we were an event maybe that's proven to have problems, expand beyond that 2-officer minimum, and we're happy to have that conversation, but we don't. We work with many of the same officers throughout the season, and they say that we don't have any issues. So, again, the type of incidents I don't think warrant full on-duty police officers in that number. When it's trips and things like that, if we do have an intoxicated person, it's honestly not because of the alcohol that's served at the event by us. It might be within, or they've just walked upon. It's been people that are stumbling through the event. It's not something that's caused because our event is there. It could happen any day. I touched on the inability to be able to pay and essentially moving into an inoperable stage of the organization. But then a couple of questions, and again, this might all be covered, is how do we determine that attendance? So when we're charged based on fees for these events, you've got them numbered in there from 1,000 to 5,000 or above 5,000. Well, we might have a bad night, a rain out, something like that. New events, as people are starting to introduce those to the area, you can never guarantee attendance on a new event. So is that hourly? Because at any given moment, is it 2,000 people there? Obviously the 10 or 12 that we estimate come throughout the week, they're not all there at one time. It's a 5-hour event. So clarifying that, and then touching on the medical as well. We do have a nurse on site, in addition to the 2 police officers that have had to maybe call 911 and get that ambulance there, but we have never had an issue. We're not an athletic event where you might expect somebody just exhausted themselves and needs an ambulance or whatever it may be. So those are just a few of the major points that I see, all leading to just what I feel is unnecessary costs to make these events unable to happen. We pay for what we use right now. We pay for the officers that we have. We pay for the city services that we use as far as the application fees and things like that. But if this were to get passed as is, the events would go away and be driven out of at least our district in the downtown area, hosted by us. And I like to think that we host creative and manageable events. I think that's all that I have. Thank you.
Questions?
Not at this moment, but we're a little.
Only the beginning.
I do have one. So the crowd size, that's tied in with the fees, correct?
It is. It's tiered from what I
Right.
see,
And that,
which I think has always been the case. I think that's kind of what determines it. Might be a few determinants in there, because currently it's $50 per permit, and now it's going up to, depending on the size of the event, $275 per permit. And I would hate to see where right now we're able to do the farmer's market as a series-based event, but if that gets broken out into 18 different events, then we're taking that, what was $50, multiplying an 18-week event by $275. So it's just, I use the farmer's market as an example because it's the easiest to relate it to, and it was the event that we knew. It's very important to us as an organization to have that event. If we don't have that event, we essentially can't operate. And if we have to incur all these costs, we're going to start the year without a chance to profit.
So with the farmers markets, et cetera, I mean, the monies that you raise for it through that, what's the difference as far as, with the costs that you do have incurred, with the police, et cetera? What is the difference? What is your profit roughly?
Versus,
Well,
as an event as a whole, or for just
let's
security?
say for the year. Let's say for the farmers markets. Do you have a ballpark as far as?
It would be right around that $150,000 difference, and that's at a very good year.
Okay, and you're saying that if we went along with this the way it is, that
Police alone, and then if we had those medical requirements as well, as far as mobile units on site and a physician and some of the other things that were listed here, then we're immediately in the negative. And that's using a number of this past year, and this was a great year for us weather-wise, which of course means, vendors each week and beverage sales and things like that, so.
Okay.
And that's our largest one, not to mention the other ones that would also suffer due to the number of, our Ignite markets and Taste on Broadway. Those don't profit anywhere near what a farmer's market might sometimes, and then we're starting that much deeper in the hole.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then with the fees, just to follow up, if we do work out how to determine the crowd size, let's say we determine it to the smallest fee, is that an issue for you?
As far as per event, the permit fees themselves aren't gonna be what makes or breaks an event, of
Okay,
course.
that's what I was trying to-
If, again, with the series-based things, if that gets broken out, I do find some of the event fees a little out of place, as though changing the location, I think it's like a $90 or $130 fee. I'd have to look. Yeah. Personally, I think that's, I understand that there's some changing, but if you have a $275 event and then there might be a change in location, and then let's say because of rain you cancel it, and it's a last minute cancellation, that's not clearly defined if it's a last minute thing versus if you cancel a couple weeks out and just all was for naught. But if that's the case, you're $400 in an event that never happened. So.
Okay, thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hello.
Please state your name and
Whiteberg.
address.
227 Allard Avenue, Green Bay. I'm also the director for the Military Avenue Business District, and here to speak about the new changes that you're looking at. I think it is extreme, the changes. It doesn't necessarily affect my farmer's market because I'm on private property, but I think it will drive your events to go towards private property so that you can't regulate it, which I think is not a good thing. I think we want to control some things in the city. Lately, I think the city's been doing a great job on increasing events and having a variety of events. And I think by incurring these extra costs, currently my market costs us about $2,000 to run. We don't make any profit. And that's not why we do it, to make a profit. Eventually, we hope it pays for itself, but most startup events are going to be like that. And the new structure would prevent anyone from even attempting to do it on city property. Right now, I think there's other areas that have lots of money and space available, and we would drive our events out of our area if we pass something this high.
Leah?
Yeah.
So most of your events are on private property, right? Nothing on the road at all?
Correct? So
I think
I would
one-
be exempt in the definition, I would be exempt from that.
Mhm.
But to me, that's not a reason to not regulate something that's even on private property. I think every event coordinator wants everything to run smooth and not have a lot of police calls and things like that. So we're all on the same page on trying to make events good and successful and healthy, creative things for people to attend. But this goes over the edge, if you ask me. Not to say that if something didn't get bigger, I couldn't close one of our streets. So I am thinking of us personally as well. But the two downtown markets for sure would be in trouble. If those two go away, it makes my market more successful. So in that sense, that's probably what would happen. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeff Marcus, and I represent Downtown Green Bay Incorporated and Old Main Street Incorporated. Both of those are, and the address is 130 East Walnut Street in the Bellin Building, Suite 501. Both of our organizations that I represent are nonprofit organizations. In 10 minutes, I'm going to be meeting with the Plan Commission and showing them that Downtown Green Bay Inc. and Old Main Street, those commercial properties, they pay into a business improvement district. One pays about 70, another pays about 200, 225. We go out and raise sponsorships that almost doubles those figures, so we can put on special events throughout the year. downtown and Old Main, working in partnership with one another, we coordinate about 70 special events a year. We consider ourselves good partners with the city. When the city invested $10 million in the city deck, we were told, make things happen there. Bring events. We want people. Look what's happened. $150 million in development has taken place because the city invested in the city deck. A $10 million investment resulted in 155,000. People want to live downtown. Companies like Schreiber, Associated, Imperial Supply, American Foods Group are bringing people here because things are happening. In 10 minutes, I'm going to meet with the Plan Commission, and I'm going to let them know that our bid plan to bring in about 200 from commercial properties, we're going to go out and raise another $200,000 so we can make things happen here. But our budget will be impacted by about $180,000 if this gets approved as is. Now, maybe Celestine and maybe other committees have made some changes to it, but we are just reacting to what has been shown to us. We coordinate the Saturday Farmers Market. It's estimated that that Saturday Farmers Market brings about 10,000 people to our downtown each week. We had some studies done. They're not there all at the same time. 500 show up at 7 o'clock, another 1,500 show up at 8:30, another 1,000 show up at 10 o'clock when they start rolling out of bed. So we don't know if 10,000 are there all at the same time. But based on the standard, the Saturday Farmers Market would need a physician on duty, a medical tent, 24 police officers and supervisors. So I just want the city to know, we want you to be our partner, but we will not be able to do events. Will the Saturday Farmers Market move somewhere else? So we're hoping that the city is our partner in this. Thousands of people. We are planning on hundreds of residential units in our downtown. I think the reason people want to move downtown is because things are happening here. We will need to discontinue the Saturday Farmers Market. We will need to discontinue Fridays on the Fox. If this goes through as planned, we will be more than happy. And I know that I was receiving emails from other event planners in the community. I had a luncheon today with a group that wants to bring 1,000 bicyclists to downtown. They're trying to decide whether they should end up somewhere else, 4 miles away from here, not in the city of Green Bay, or on the city deck because things are happening here. 1,000 bike riders from La Crosse to Green Bay, Wisconsin. They're going to move this event to finish in Green Bay versus Racine and Kenosha because things are happening here. I was there lobbying that downtown is the place to be. Downtown is where you should have your finish line. We have the hotels here. We have the restaurants here. So at noon today, when I was at a luncheon at the other place, I was trying to convince them that Green Bay is the place to bring your event. And I hope after this all gets resolved, I want you to know, I totally believe and support that if there are increased fees, we're fine with that. Our increased fees, $50 for the application fee for Fridays on the Fox. If that's all we paid in the past, can we pay more than that? Yes, it's proposed to go up to $1,750. If there's a per week fee and we have 8 Fridays on the Fox, yes, we can do that. The Saturday Farmers Market fee, is $50 too low? Of course. If the weekly fee of $275 is assessed for every one of those weeks, we will pay $6,325. We'll find a way. We'll find a way to pay a higher fee. I cannot afford $180,000. And in 10 minutes, I'm going to propose a budget that we take in some bid money and some sponsorship money. I hire about 6 or 8 people to work hard in 4 areas of downtown development. Events is just one of the pillars. We do business development, we do physical improvements, and I don't know, I'm stressed. I don't know what the 4th one is, but say again?
Marketing.
And we do downtown marketing. We want to market downtown as a great place to be. Just this Saturday, we had a cafe crawl. We wanted to show off the cool coffee shops in the downtown. 1,000 people showed up to hop on a free trolley and get some free samples of coffee at a number of coffee shops. We had gallery night last Thursday. These are the kinds of things that we do throughout the year that help create the vibe, that help contributed why Schreiber wanted to spend $85 million on an office building and other companies that followed. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to just share this. It is our hope that we can work with the planners. We take great pride in working closely with the Green Bay Police Department. When 2 community police officers are at our Saturday Farmers Market on their bicycles, we get to know those police officers. We see them mingling. We love to have them there. I just don't think we need 24 police officers at the Saturday Farmers Market. And if there's exceptions, but maybe I need to be informed. If there is something our organization doesn't know, if there are threats to our city and our community and our events, I need to know that. But I just hope you recognize that a dozen to 20 officers at a farmer's market might be more than we need.
Yep. Jeff, thanks for coming in, Jeff. I know you gotta get upstairs, but, how were you notified of this? I mean, I guess one of the concerns I had is that maybe a number of the nonprofits weren't aware of some of these things. Was there something as far as the dialogue or anything coming out to you?
Oh yeah, we were made. We were made
aware?
aware that
Okay.
this is. We have no hard feelings about this. We just think that maybe we should slow this train down a little bit and look at the reasoning. I didn't, and maybe having the groups come in. If 5 other groups are going to come up and say the same thing, maybe Celestine and others have information that half of what I said is not to worry about. I want you to know that we're a nonprofit that treats the city of Green Bay like our partner. Help us continue. We have companies like Foxconn and others that are investing in our downtown. They're moving here because things are happening here. We want to keep that vibe going because residential and corporate are hot right now. Green Bay is the place to be, and we want to just keep that momentum going.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Holly Williams, 434 North Broadway in De Pere. I represent PMI Entertainment Group. I'm the Vice President of Consumer Events, and we are working on, right now, the 2019 Tall Ship Festival, which is scheduled to come back in July. So this is the 5th time that the Tall Ships have been to Green Bay, and I feel like we have been good partners in the past and have collaborated with police, fire, Coast Guard, emergency services, the county, really to develop our security plan. And just so you understand, this event had a $4.3 million impact on the community when it was here in 2016. And the changes that are proposed, not as concerned like everyone else about the permit fees, but the security fees are the main concern for us. We'll go from a $4,000 bill to the police department in Green Bay in 2016 to over $40,000 in 2019 if it's proposed. And I understand there have been some changes to that. So I would just like to request some flexibility that we're able to use some of the resources that we've used in the past. We've always been transparent with our security plan and have used off-duty officers in the past. Just as a reference, we usually work with 3 off-duty Brown County officers and 2 T-shirt security on site. But we also have a command center with the fire department that has 2 supervisors, a paramedic, and an ambulance. But we're also coordinating with Water Patrol as well, with the Coast Guard, DNR, police, and fire all work collaboratively. So I hope that we can continue to be collaborative and be flexible in the future. So that's really all. Questions?
Thanks, Holly.
Yep, thank you.
So one of the things, I guess, that
Name and address, please.
Brian Johnson, 516 Hubbard
You're
Street.
an alder.
You're an alder.
Are you speaking as an alder, or?
I'm speaking as an alder.
Oh,
So,
go ahead.
The request that I'm going to make of the committee is that you refer this back to staff. I think we heard from a number of nonprofits that were here, and much like Jeff Marcus had alluded to, I've got to head up to Plan Commission, but I wanted to kind of get this out that I think it's important that this be, there's a lot more discussion that needs to go into this, and there's, something going on here, and that's unintended consequences. And I think that maybe some of those things haven't been thoroughly vetted with the organizations that will be impacted by this the most. And when we were here 2 weeks ago, when we talked about the issue, and I asked for this to be held to allow some more opportunity for us to look at these things, at that time, kind of the question was broached, what's driving this change? What was discussed was, the volume of events has increased in the city of Green Bay. Now, I think that's a great thing. We're using that tool to market to developers. to market to companies, to bring staff here, to develop our neighborhoods. We're using that as a tool. And my fear is an unintended consequence is going to drive these events to other communities where there aren't so many barriers. Jeff talked about that with a bike race. They could go anywhere. They're choosing Green Bay. And what I don't want to do is create a barrier that's going to force them elsewhere. And when we talk about the increase in the number of events, if that's creating a burden on city staff, and I think, yeah, we got to have that discussion about what the fees look like. Jeff was a little bit more gracious, I think, when he talked about, you know what, we'll find a way to pay for these event permit fees. But what I heard last month is that we're not looking to add any additional staff. We're just looking to increase the revenue. In which case, then, I would say, why are we asking the nonprofit community to bear the burden of what might be a budget shortfall? And that's how we're trying to close it. And so I'm not suggesting that that's the reason we're doing it, but it seems to me that if we're not going to add any additional staff, if we're not going to add any additional resources, why do we need to increase the amount of revenue that we're generating off of permit fees when that's money that nonprofit organizations take and reinvest directly back into our community? And so, so again, with that, I would just ask that the committee refer this back to staff with the expectation that they reach out not only to get feedback from the nonprofit community that's most affected by this, but to actually have them be a part of crafting the ordinance. Because I feel if they have some ownership over what's happening here, they're going to be that much more likely to embrace this passage.
Brian?
Yeah.
Brian, I was going to ask, how long are you, I mean, 2 weeks? Oh, never mind. 2 weeks doesn't seem like enough time, you know, to refer back. Would you like a little more time for this?
I mean, speaking for my staff, if you were to refer this back, I know we're out all this week after starting tomorrow. So, I mean, I know that next week's shot. I mean, maybe, you know, we could sit down and do it. But again, if you want to thoroughly take a look at what other communities are doing, you know, and actually, again, have an ordinance that's going to involve, there's other organizations that we need to reach out to as well that this really dramatically affects.
Do you have any idea how many there are in the city right now? I mean, other groups, nonprofits,
I think that'd be
roughly?
a question better suited for city staff.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the floor by Alder Steuer. Second by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed. The floor is now closed. Just one quick pipe before, our next meeting in 2 weeks is the same night that we're having a budget. So I was thinking of maybe not having our meeting, so I
Right.
was gonna cancel
I
that.
think Jamie in the clerk's office was inquiring whether, and also that council meeting following would be canceled as well, the one before Thanksgiving. So then we would.
We voted on that, to cancel
Right,
that.
so the
Sometime in
proposal was to
December.
cancel the next regularly scheduled PNP meeting and
Yep.
just have the one the Monday after Thanksgiving.
Yep.
So we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that will give staff more time if we refer.
I agree.
All right.
I agree.
I'll let the clerk's staff know.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
I didn't get you anything, I feel so bad.
Okay, so the first document that we're going to talk about, I'm going to do that from over here, just because I have a lot of paper, excuse me, is something I'd done a while ago, Celestine Jeffries, Chief of Staff. And that is to, and that's the document on legal paper, is to compare the costs of the current application fees with the changes. So the 4 columns that are in gray represent the column that's not in gray is the current fee that these organizations paid. And this is based off of the actual special events calendar from 2017. Then there's a column for a first-time event upcharge, a column for a non-resident upcharge, an application fee, what that really total. And so you can look through this and see that there are some organizations that would be paying more, and then there are other organizations that would be paying not much more. So I'll point out that on page 4, the Bellens Women Half Marathon, which is like a third of the way from the bottom, they currently pay an application fee of $50. Given the fact that it's an athletic event and the size of it, their application fee would be $200. I also want to point out to you on page 5, the Hot Cider Hustle, which is about a third of the way from the top of the page. That event currently paid $50, well, last year it paid $50. That was a first-time event, so that would be an additional $150. They do not live here. The taxpayers pay for the city services, so it is perfectly reasonable and legitimate to have a non-resident upcharge. That would be $400. The application fee was $200, given the size of the event and the fact that it's an athletic event. And so their total application cost would be $750. So I just wanted to point that out to you. That's something that you can look at. There's a few things I'd like to address before I go into the two matrices from the fire department and the police department. First, why are we here? We are here because, in fact, the staff are feeling very pressed for time to manage the events. We've gone from 80 events to 200. And to say that we're not adding staff is actually inaccurate. What we're doing is we're taking the application fees, we are applying them to additional hours for a staff member who is currently part-time. So right now, special events are out of the risk department. So that's Nate Frumming, who attended the meeting the last time, and Sarah Fiddler, who is a HR specialist, I think is her title. A rule of thumb for a city employee is about $70 an hour if you include benefits. I have an email from Colleen Pins from last year. They spent between 5 to 10% of their time, or a total between the two of them of $200 to $400 hours a year on special events. That's 200 hours a year to 400 hours a year that they're not making our employees safer, because that's their job. The other reason is that when we looked at the fees, the application fees, we wanted to ensure that we are recouping our costs. When you look at the bottom, the last page, page 5, are administrative costs. The current fees give us about $5,000, and with the proposed fee schedule change, that was almost double. So in terms of what is happening for fees and where they're going at application fees, those are going to help with administrative costs, to relieve the burden from the risk management department, to give additional hours for an employee who's currently part-time. The other reason why we wanted to do this rewrite is so that we could make the whole process easier. Unfortunately, it's a PDF application that you have to download and then write on and send in. So with this change, we would have someone, as I said, who'd be essentially the special events coordinator, part-time, highly part-time. And that person would be able to shepherd a new application through each department. And that would be that person's job for those hours a week, and only that job. The other reason why we wanted to do this is because, as I said, we have a little bit of frustration on the part of staff. One of the reasons for a first-time event upcharge, I mean, I can personally tell you that for first-time events, staff members spend anywhere from 2 to 5 hours for a brand new event. Sometimes that is 3 people, sometimes that's as many as 7, depending on the complexity and location of the event. So that's another place where we need to recoup our costs. You may also ask, well, where did you get these numbers from? Well, we actually looked at Oshkosh and Appleton. Those are the cities that are most comparable to us. And in looking at their costs, the way that, especially that Appleton does their costs, they have about the same size events that paradigm that we do, 150 for a simple event, that's our special one. Then under 1,000, 1,000 to 5,000, over 5,000, that's what Appleton has. They have, so small event, which is under 1,000 people with a street closure, is $100. They charge you more money if you're later with your application. Large events with street closures, which is between 1,000 and about 5,000 people. In Appleton, if you get it in 3 months' time, that's $700. If you get it in about 30 days, it's $1,000 plus a late fee. So we felt that the fee schedule, the application fee schedule, was very much in line with what Appleton was doing and Oshkosh. And as I said, the purpose of the fee schedule was to make it simpler so that we can have a better process and to assign those duties to a staff member, and to have the application fees pay for that staff member's time. So let's turn to the two matrices for police and fire.
Before we go there, could I
Yeah.
ask you a question
Sure.
about the fees?
Sure.
So we see Saturday Farmers Market Series, Wednesday
Yes.
Market
So,
Series.
thank you for.
So is that $275 for the series
No, for
or
the whole thing. So not each time, so we.
not
would
each time? So
correct.
for the
We
whole,
would
that's
not-
what I was getting
We would
at.
not be charging, that would be outlandish, to be honest with you.
Right.
We would not be charging $275 for the Wednesday farmer's market for each time they had a farmer's market. They do have to pay a picnic license fee for their alcohol permit every time, but that is state law. So for any successive event, be it Art Street, which is over 3 days on a weekend, or the Wednesday farmer's market, which is over 20 weeks, that would be one application fee, not multiple application
Okay,
fees.
that's
The reason why we have that event change fee, here. The reason why we have that event change fee, location fee, is if there is a change. So let's say, like the Saturday farmer's market is a 100-year-old, 125-year-old event. It used to be over by the Associated Bank building, but that event's been going on for a really long time. And when they moved to Washington Street, it's not a new event really, but the location change means that staff members need to then re-examine the area and make sure that the event has what they need and the city has what it needs. So that's why there's a fee for an event location change. Cancellation fee, that is if, not due to unforeseen circumstances, but I did write down that it would be important to make sure that that's clear, although we currently don't do that. If someone has to cancel an event for rain, we just move their application fee and their application to a new date. We don't currently do that. So, any other questions before I continue?
And the employee that's part-time, you
Correct.
want to go full-time, that.
No, it wouldn't be full-time.
Well,
Additional hours.
additional hours.
Mhm.
That does not, I mean, we've got budget coming up and we got an
Mhm.
employee, that is completely not related to any freeze that's coming up in the budget if
Correct,
that happens.
because that person's staff time that person's additional hours are paid for through the application fees.
So,
Our
okay.
estimated application fees.
Yep, okay.
And as I said, when you look at what I provided, this sheet, you'll see that there are a number of places where the fees do go up, but they don't go up, they're not outlandish. So $275 for 20 weeks is $13 a week.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Celestine.
And there's more, by the way.
Right, and
to talk
Uh,
maybe I
about.
should wait for
Just
that.
on the fees?
Just on the fees.
Yeah, we
I'm
can
gonna
have
wait for,
Okay.
I'll wait then.
All right.
So, if you want to move on to then
Yep.
the two matrices that I provided. This is the part that I think caused a lot of consternation, and I completely understand. So, let me just say this from the outset, and I hope that the two proposed changes will adequately capture what the police department and fire department believe is important to keep all of our events safe, because there's nothing that kills economic development like an event with some horrible happenstance. But at the same time, also conveys that this is a conversation between the event organizer and the police and fire departments. And so the police and fire departments will look at the event, they'll look at all of the requirements, the standards that are listed below. Actually, I didn't put them on these papers, but they're in the original ordinance. Time of day, is there general seating, is alcohol being served? What time of season, what is the history of the event? So there's lots of factors that the police department takes into account in order to determine the number of officers, and the same thing with the fire department, the number of emergency resources that need to be deployed. So let's turn first to the police departments. So in talking with some police senior staff members, I have amended in a couple places on this sheet. First, I added a sentence under 7 that says, and it's in red on your document, it is important for event organizers to partner with the police department to determine appropriate staffing levels for a safe and secure event. So once again, just trying to impart to the reader of the ordinance, and also a lot of this information would be on the application, but trying to impart that this is a conversation, that this is a partnership. The police want the event to go forward. The police want the event to go forward with safety and security. I also added under recommended resource, in parentheses, may be a required resource under the direction of the police chief or his or her designee. So we are ensuring that we are giving ourselves a way to say, nope, we think that you need to have this number of officers and supervisors given what we know about the event, either as presented or past history. So if we go through the matrix a little bit, at the top I also added staffing guideline, because once again, this matrix is not hard and fast. Even with all the numbers that I think cause a lot of consternation, there was language in the ordinance that said this is not a hard and fast, but it's obvious why I think a lot of the readers took this as a hard and fast rule. So staffing guideline, as you can see the changes for yourself: 0 to 2 officers, 2 to 4 officers with 1 to 2 supervisors, 4 to 8 officers with 1 to 3 supervisors, and over 6 officers with 3 supervisors. I will say that I believe that this reflects accurately my conversation with the police department. There is one thing in here that they don't quite agree with, so I think it's going to require a little more conversation. Moving on to the fire department, I added those same 2 sentences with the, just emphasizing that it's important for event organizers to understand that this is a partnership and a conversation, and the type of events that you have determines the staffing levels that are required. And then I also changed a little bit on the matrix to essentially reflect that the recommended resources, especially of a first aid station, including a nurse, a first aid station including a physician, ambulance, and mobile team, are recommended but may actually be required. So let me give you an example. I reached out to Mosaic. So I reached out to Mosaic, the Bellin Run, the 3 business improvement districts with whom I've already had 2 conversations in the past year. I also reached out to the New Pride event. They're out of Appleton. And I also reached out to Baycare. So I had conversations with Mosaic, and got emails from Bellin, New Pride, and also the 3 business improvement districts. Parenthetically, we will be reaching out to the GBNLC, the Green Bay Neighborhood Leadership Council, because this ordinance change does affect them only in as much as that we will ask neighborhood associations to apply. Their fees they won't have fees, but they will need to apply for their special events in our parks and block parties. So, back to Mosaic. So, Mosaic used to have an ambulance for the Art Street event. And after many years of having an ambulance and the ambulance not really being deployed to do anything, the fire department determined that it was no longer necessary for Art Street to pay for an ambulance. And so this is the way, that's a very small example of the way in which the protective services monitor how they interact with events, and they provide the appropriate level, truly the appropriate level of security for the event. As I said though, just going back, I realized that the matrix, the police and fire matrix, caused some consternation, which is the reason why I made some changes. Finally, I did hear from New Pride that they were concerned about how do we calculate the number of people attending an event. Is it the number of people over hours, days, like with Art Street? And so sort of a per hour person count, or is it the total number of people expected? Just in terms of our own workflow here for the special events, I think it's important for an event organizer to say, these are the total number of people that we expect. It's the honor system. We're not going out, we don't have someone to go out there and count people, which is tough to do in a crowd, and say, well, you said you had 1,000 people, and we know that you had 5,000 because we had people counting. We asked the event holders to give us an estimate of the total number of participants and attendees and give that to us so that we can determine the fees. Do we expect that there'll be some events who'll say, yeah, we have 1,000 and 5,000? Yes, we do. But then again, if you look at this, the sheet that I had done, the spreadsheet, most events are actually in that 1,000 to 5,000 category. We do have obviously a few events that are over 5,000, but we leave it up to the event organizer to be honest with us, and we need to, instead of taking the sort of a per hour count of people, just a total number of people that you expect to come to your event. That's the Occam's razor. That's the simplest way to do this.
So,
Yes.
I was gonna ask, I mean, other events, I mean, maybe I'm wrong on this, but aren't photos taken sometimes of an event? I mean, like
Sure.
estimation?
But we don't do that
You
as a
don't do
matter
that?
of course, no.
And I don't know how difficult that would be to do that.
I don't think it's necessary, because most people are, at this point, most people are fairly honest, and when we have, for an event like, let's see, Festival de la Familia. So that's an event that happens, September, August, and the police have a sense, it's an older event, and so police have a sense of about how many people come, and that's the number we go with. I don't think that we need to check.
2 questions for you.
Yes,
There was some information brought forward by the bids, the boards and everything, that they hire off-duty police officers.
thank you for bringing that up. Yes, we can no longer do that. We will not, unfortunately, and we did have a conversation with the bids about that, probably 7 months ago. We can no longer do that because when we have officers deployed with city equipment, not on city time, that is a problem for us. So we need to have on-duty officers. In addition to the fact there are some issues with how these kinds of assignments are offered inside the police department that has to do with the union that we need to adhere to. So off-duty officers for the events that come to us are no longer permitted.
Okay, well, now I got 3 questions for you. Do you know,
Sure.
following up on that one, do you know roughly how much the difference is between an off-duty
Yes,
officer?
$45 an hour for off-duty and $70 an hour, $73 for on-duty. That's a regular officer, not a supervisor.
Okay. And considering that we've drastically reduced the, and that is still a guideline, correct?
Correct, it is a guideline.
So it may not even be that. Okay. Then lastly, it says supervisors in purple.
Yes.
I'm not sure, what, is that a on-duty police officer supervising, or?
Yes, and so there are times when we can assign a supervisor per one of the senior staff members of the police department, and if I say something wrong, correct me, that we can assign a supervisor who's on duty already, so that there wouldn't be that additional cost to the event organizer. Let me give you an example. So we had the dragon boat race in the water in July.
That was cool.
It was cool. We had some boats in the water, police boats that were already going to be there, so that we didn't charge them for that service. So we tried very hard to make sure, because we want those events. And we also want to make sure that the city services are adequately paid for. Our time is adequately, not excessively, adequately compensated. So the police department, the fire department, as well as DPW, we haven't talked about DPW in this, because they're the ones who close streets, and so often they, work with the event organizers to, so that these sawhorses are deployed, and the event organizers put them together and then put them off to the side so DPW can come and collect them. So we really work with event organizers. I do not anticipate that changing. I think people are really shocked by the numbers, and I completely understand. I think it was important to reach out. If I may also interject that timing. So we have a council meeting and a budget meeting on November 5th. The November 20th meeting is canceled. We have another meeting on December 4th. Usually, although not right now, the December 18th meeting is canceled. We usually do not have a first meeting in January. We have a meeting on the third Tuesday in January. So my concern about sending this back to staff for more input, which I believe we've gotten, and that we had, in many ways we had before, but these matrices need to be changed, would delay the January 1 implementation of this. So we do have probably until February 1st at the very latest to get this started so that the staff member can be appropriately trained, and then also so that the risk management department can turn their attention to their other duties. So there is a little bit of a time crunch here. I don't want to rush it, but we don't have infinite time.
Okay. Anything, any further information?
No.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, you answered all mine. Thank you very much. I'm wondering if there's anybody on the floor who has any input they'd like to make now that they've heard. I'll take a motion to open the floor.
Second?
I'll take a motion.
No, I'll do that.
Motion to open the floor, Alder Steuer.
It sounded.
Seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Yep, please, make sure you fill out a form when you get done, but your name and address, please.
Pam Parrish, 2596 Appian Way. I work for Downtown Green Bay, so I'll speak for Jeff. We are just hearing these changes. I know we took a while to read everything and then get our comments back to Celestine, and then now it's happening. Hearing everything, I still have like a lot of questions or a lot of ambiguities. If the police and the fire are meeting with us to determine how many police officers and ambulance and physicians needed, is that going to be determined right away? Is it going to be determined after the event, and when are we paying for that? If there are going to be all these ambiguities on it, it depends on the event. How are we supposed to know that and budget for that? We budget a year before, and if there's going to be all of that, then why is there a requirement if it's going to be on a different basis every time? I just don't understand fully like what that's going to be. I think it needs to be more laid out to be fair for everyone having an event. I understand like with new events it takes a lot of time, but for our farmers markets on Saturday that have been on for 101 years, we don't use DPW. We go through the permit process every year. How much time is that really taking a staff person, I guess, and I know it needs to be allocated for each event that the staff person is doing. We do new events too, and I understand it takes time, but I think with our nonprofit organizations, we've been doing events and we know events, and we try to help mitigate anything that would be questionable for the city. If they have questions for us, we always try to put everything forward right away so that it isn't extra work on their end. I just don't feel comfortable that our organization would feel okay with these new additions, updates that we haven't seen in person to go forward to council to vote on. So I echo with Brian what he said earlier, that I think it deserves more time to be discussed.
Okay.
Any other questions for me?
I was just gonna ask your, so the fees don't bother you so much? It's
Oh, yes, they do.
They do bother you?
Oh my gosh.
Well,
it's-
okay, I was looking at the sheet here.
Yeah, so like with the farmer's market, for example,
But
if,
this, okay.
I know it depends on the event and the location with the fire and police, but that adds, like Jeff was saying, the $180,000. That's just the addition.
I was just talking about.
It wouldn't be.
Oh, for the event permit
The
fees?
event
Yeah.
That doesn't bother
I
me.
apologize. I
No,
should have
but
said that.
the fire and police,
That's,
that
the
doubles
crux.
the cost of
Right.
everything.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's all. like that.
Anyone else on this? Going once?
I would come up there, I'm basically gonna say exactly what Pam said.
Okay. We'll add in IBID.
Second.
Second.
And I would just say that in terms of timing, like I said, we do really have until February, at the latest, February 1st, in order to implement this, get the staff member trained, get these fees out there. So it could go to the next PMP meeting is,
We're canceling the next one, so the
But
next
be-
one will be until November, the Monday after Thanksgiving.
okay, so
And then
that
it-
is the 26th of November.
26th,
So then that would go for.
December 4th, council meeting.
Yes.
Then the next council meeting after that would be the end of January.
Mhm.
I mean, that would be fine, that would be the latest.
Okay, I think we can get her done this year. I think just one more council. I think what you've got here is pretty good, and I think once we get into it and everything, there might be little tweaks or something, but I think once they have a chance to go over it and we have that dialogue, I think we're not that far away where we should be able to wrap this up with
Okay.
one more protection policy meeting and
Okay.
and council meeting, I think. So I feel pretty comfortable referring this back and having that.
And so you would like me to essentially meet with them and with the, it's not just the business improvement districts, there are other
Right.
nonprofits in
Yep.
town.
Yep.
And sort of go over the changes that I've made,
Yep.
which, the changes to the fee schedule, that hasn't changed actually for about a year.
Right.
But the changes to the matrices have changed most recently, so go over those changes, clear up any ambiguities. Some of the ordinance actually hasn't changed, some of the processes in the ordinance haven't changed, a lot of definitions have changed. So, going over that, so would that be your direction?
Yes,
To meet
that-
with them?
yep.
Okay, and some other event organizers, that'd be fine.
Yep. If we can get this information out to them and they can go over it, and I think both sides will be ready for that dialogue, and we should be all set for the next meeting, I think.
You have a motion to that effect?
We
Motion
need
for that?
to close the floor first.
No. Motion to close the floor?
Motion to close the floor by Alder Steuer.
Second.
Second by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor of closing the floor?
Aye.
Aye. The floor is closed. I'll take a motion to refer back to staff.
Motion.
Refer back to staff.
Motion by Alder Vanderleest to refer back to staff, seconded by Alder Stevens.
Do we want to put the date in there for December, that we have it back, that everything is fine?
I think we could,
That's fine?
sure.
Yes.
So it'd be, refer back till our next meeting, which would be November. And then it would be council in December.
So staff would include mayor's office and administration, just whoever is
Staff
involved in
would
this.
be the mayor's office, the police department, the fire department, the risk management department. Yep, that's it.
Okay. Just for
So
clarification.
for Alder Vanderleest, second by Stevens, to
Yep.
refer the back to staff.
Okay, any other discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have a motion. Thank you. Very well done, Celestine. I think the changes are very helpful. Thank you.
All right.
We're on to item number 2. Consideration with possible action on a change of agent for Christ Oil Company at 1180 East Mason Street. Staff.
Law department has no objection. The applicant does have a few recent convictions from 2016 for bail jumping and resisting and obstruction, as well as a 2012 possession of paraphernalia. However, the applicant did disclose those convictions on her application, and they are not enough to support a determination that she is a habitual law offender. We just wanted to bring that to the committee's attention.
Okay.
Police department doesn't have any objections.
Okay. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Alder Steuer, seconded by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries unanimously.
Okay, number 3.
Number 3, consideration with possible action on an application for a retail license transfer of premises to premises by Carnitas El Bajito to transfer his Class B beer license from 1742 East Mason Street to 1698 East Mason Street. That's a big jump. Staff?
Law Department has no objection. This is just a retail license premise to premise transfer. It's the same legal entity that's just moving their business to another location.
No objections.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion approved by Alder Steuer, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Oh, and I should have said at the very beginning, I gotta make a note. Everything we do here at committee is just a recommendation to the council. The council has the final say, which will be next Tuesday, 6 o'clock in the room right next door. So if you're not happy with our decision, you can always come and appeal to the entire council. Okay. Are we ready for 4?
Yes.
Consideration with possible action on a request by Scogan's Food Liner, Inc. at 2430 University Avenue to amend their liquor license description from one-story cement building SEP W&S storage and checkouts to one-story cement building approximately 80,110 square feet. With separate wine and spirit storage and checkout, including designated stalls and parking lot for online grocery pickup. Staff.
So the licensee is looking to amend their license to include online sales and pickup of alcohol in their parking lot, the click and collect sales that we've discussed previously. We have no legal objection, as this type of activity is not prohibited under state law. However, there is a question of policy. Recently, the Common Council did debate the issue of adopting an ordinance to regulate click and collect sales of alcohol and determined that this was not an activity the city wanted to support. Accordingly, we would recommend denial based on the concerns raised by the council, and also because we do not have an ordinance or any ordinance provisions that would adequately regulate this activity.
Okay, so that's what I was wondering, if this was bringing that ordinance back to life, but it's really
bringing
not.
the ordinance back, so
We'd have to bring it
we had a licensee
back.
who was requesting it, and so in order to move forward with that type of activity, staff was recommending that an ordinance be put in place first. And council struck down that ordinance, not wanting the city to move in that direction, allowing that type of activity. And then this is another licensee that's coming forward asking for that type of activity, which, based on discussions from common council, it was not something that was supported.
Okay. Well, yep, motion to open the floor?
Oh, no. What do the police think?
Oh, okay.
We
Sorry.
can concur with
We
legal.
concur.
Okay. Motion.
He winked at me. Motion open the floor by Alder Stevens. Seconded by Alder Steuer.
Sure.
All in favor of opening the floor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the floor is now open. Anyone here to speak on this? And you already filled out a,
Did I fill one out?
yeah.
No, I
Oh,
will.
please, yeah,
Okay.
before you go.
Rick Teagarden, 2945 Emily Drive. So I'm here for the Festival University location, which is a click and go location. We'll have 3 in our community. Swamico and De Pere have been selected, the other 2 locations, so we're the only one in the city of Green Bay. So the other 2, as far as I know, have been or in the process of being approved. So we're hoping that we will all be together on this, and online obviously is an important part of the growth of our business. We're all competing. Anybody who's in brick and mortar is now competing against online, and so it just adds a competitive. It keeps us competitive. I just want to mention that we have an internal audit. I think the police department is probably aware of our internal audit. The AP department on a quarterly basis inspects our wine and spirits department and our cashiers to make sure that that we are in compliance. And I know that the city, we call it Sting, but they're in also checking. So, and I think that the records will show that the festival has has done a great job as far as compliance. So we ask that you reconsider, and that, again, we feel it's important for us as a long-term growth to stay competitive. Any questions? Or?
One quick question on when the person that drives up for the delivery, are they checked as far as identification?
It's going to be the exact same transaction as in the store. They're going to have to provide ID. The ID is going to have to be removed from their carrier, or whatever they're carrying, it, wallet, purse. We are going to check and make sure that we have a match, and we'll proceed from there. And the person that's bringing it out will also be not a minor. Now, we have minors that are at the register, but then at that point we call over a CSR or a customer service manager that is not a minor, and they'll take care of but anybody who's bringing it out is of age.
Okay. That answers my question, thank you.
So, and they'll be trained.
Rick, I was going to ask, I suppose there haven't been too many studies on this as far as what you might lose business-wise with something like this. I mean, you're trying to stay competitive, I understand that.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we're looking at in Green Bay is that there are many, many opportunities to get alcohol. There's many establishments, and I think that might have been part of it too. So we understand that you're trying to do it for a business purpose, but what do you feel you might lose in terms of?
We're relatively late to the game here right now, and we just really wanted to, and that was on purpose. We really wanted others to kind of figure out how to do it, because at this point, to be honest with you, no one's making money on online services. But we know that the future is going there, and so we just tried to create some best practices, borrowing from everybody else who rolled it out, and not only in Wisconsin but elsewhere. So all our leaders are part of what we call share groups, and so this is something that's been on the radar for 3-4 years, and but we just felt like we needed to move now to kind of stay competitive.
Are you aware of other establishments that are doing this right now
Yes.
in the area?
Yes. So, yeah, we have as far as our camera system, I think the police department probably would vouch that maybe as far as a retailer, we may have the best security system within the city of Green Bay. I mean, we have hundreds of cameras that are high, HD, and so we have one on that area too now. So it will be constantly monitored. It's just part of what we're hoping to do to move forward. And again, hopefully, my hope is that we are not going to be different than De Pere, or not going to be different than Swamico, because I don't want to get business away from there. Because there's guests that come to the city of Green Bay, they'll have some options of where they go, and so I want the university location to be on a level playing field with one of those options.
Did you, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm just going to ask one more question.
Yep, go ahead.
There's other festivals in the city, so this is the only one that you're talking
Yeah.
about? Not the other stores?
The one in Bellevue,
Yeah.
because again, we're relatively new, maybe down the line, all of our locations will have it, but it was just a thought that the university location would kind of manage the east side as far as online, and then the Swamico would take the north, and De Pere would take the south, basically, and so the west side and the east side store at this time are not in the click and go program.
Okay, that's all, thanks.
Okay. When we brought this ordinance forward, did you get a chance to look at it, at what the ordinance was? Were you aware we had brought forward an ordinance for this?
I was aware that, yeah, it was brought forth and it wasn't approved, so, yeah.
Okay, it was approved at committee, but when we got to council, there was pushback and it
Yeah.
fell. And I was just wondering if you'd seen that ordinance, if there's anything in that ordinance that you found problematical, or if you thought that ordinance was okay, or if you had a chance to look at it.
Is there anything in that ordinance that's different from what I suggested would be as far as procedure?
I think it's a little more detailed. I'm trying to remember. It was, a month or two ago.
Okay.
Well, okay,
I'm trying to pull it up now.
Yeah.
but,
I know at De Pere, they want a specific path that this online shopper would follow. Well, there's 4 designated parking stalls in our parking lot. If you've been there, you'll see them. They got the big click and go signs on them. And they go from our receiving dock, which is, there's a side door, they go from there to that. So,
yeah, I think there was some procedural thing
right,
about, like,
so
whoever made the order had to pick it up or something.
It requires that, that the licensed establishment clearly details how their click and collect operation will function, and that the operation plan shall include the licensee's protocol for assuring that underage persons and intoxicated persons do not pick up alcohol via the click and collect program. Let's see. No establishment holding an alcohol beverage license shall allow online purchase and pickup of alcohol beverages unless the sale is consummated on the licensed premise. Payment for the purchase has to be completed on the premise, may not be completed until the purchaser is at the licensed premise and has presented valid photo ID that has been verified by a licensed operator employed by the premise. The operator must verify that the person placing the click and collect order is the same person that's picking up the order. That the sale and delivery of click and collect purchases shall be made only by a licensed operator. No alcohol sales are permitted if the purchaser fails to present valid photo ID. The click and collect system must allow the purchase of the alcohol to be denied without affecting the remainder of the purchase. And the transaction has to be captured and retained. The image of the vehicle into which the order is being loaded, there has to be a retainment and capture of that image for 30 days. The transaction has to be recorded and retained for 30 days, which includes the name of the purchaser, the type of ID that was presented with the number and expiration date, the purchaser's date of birth, and the license plate of the vehicle. It designates what the hours shall be between, like, it's prohibited between 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. for Class B and so forth, which coincides with what our ordinance is. And that if the click and collect purchaser is not the driver of the vehicle into which the order is being loaded, the licensed operator must verify that the driver is 21 years of age or older. It basically is structured so that all state laws are being checked and followed, correct?
so the hours of our click and go are from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So we have, right now, the individual that's doing it, we have that they're not only of age, but they've taken the city liquor license. So they're licensed liquor, they've went through the procedure. So we could say that all of our click and go personnel would be an easy step, would be part of that process. So I think 10 to 7, it's pretty simple. There's 4 pickups in an hour right now, the way we got it structured. So it'd be, and as far as the documentation being held for 30 days, everything that we record is on record for 45 days. So that would be no problem.
Well, that's too long, forget it.
We followed a model ordinance that Madison had used
Okay.
as far as the structure, so I think it's
The one thing that I find that I'm a little curious about is payment. I mean, the whole purpose of online purchases is you'd pay online before you pick up, correct? But with this, you wouldn't be able, you would have to pay for the alcohol when you pick it up?
You could
Does that-
finalize it at that moment, Randy.
That wouldn't-
So, yeah, but if they weren't of age or there was an issue, we would take it off and then finalize that.
Okay. Then is there, I think we need to get the horse before the cart here. We need to get the ordinance in place. If we bring that back and then we can hold this until we get the ordinance in place, is that problematic? I mean, it doesn't sound like you're ready to jump right now.
No, the program's laid out,
Right.
is rolling right now, and everybody else is kind of in the same place. Maybe we're a little bit behind, but I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
So I just want to do the right thing.
Yep, thank you. Anything else? Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
Motion.
Oh, yep.
Well, let's
Well-
motion to close the floor.
Well, Barb can talk at any
Well, I know.
time, so, but
I'm
is
just-
there anyone else who'd like to speak to this? Before all the floor.
408 South Van Buren Street, apartment 1. Just want to reflect, there's one thing I'm not hearing, and that is where in the vehicle do they place the alcohol? So I want to consider that.
Okay.
Usually it's the trunk, but I don't think, it doesn't really coincide.
As long as it's
with-
not open.
Right, the state laws don't really, it's more of verifying that the person is of age and that the person that's picking up is the person who made the purchase and that the person that's giving the alcohol is a licensed operator. And then we have a record of the transaction in case something comes up later on.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Okay, anyone else on this before? Okay, why don't we make a motion to close the floor?
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
Motion to close the floor by Alder Steuer, second by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Floor is now closed. Alder Dorf? Got 2 cents for us?
Thank you, yes. I really would like to see this come back to council, and I think at council, we didn't have any answers to a lot of the questions, and the person that had brought this forward, or that organization, didn't come to council to answer the questions. So I think it is the trend of the future. I think that we should be looking at this, and I would hope that we could get ready to come to council when it comes back. But would it be at the next meeting, or are we just, well, I guess you guys are going to decide whether to send it back to staff or not. I just think it would be helpful to have a practitioner who's going to be using it be at the meeting to answer the questions, because that's not what happened last time.
What I'm thinking is we'd hold this, put on our next agenda meeting, the ordinance, and it would be published so that certainly everyone can look at it and show up at the Protection Policy Committee meeting to give our input, and we can tweak as we see needed, and then that can go to council by December, and we should be rocking and rolling.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any discussion?
Well, I wanted to ask either the lieutenant or the chief, you know, what your objection would be to this. I know you just said you concurred, but is there?
No, not with this.
What do you mean? Aren't they, didn't police concur with law on this? I thought.
The first 2 items we did, but
Yeah.
the third item I don't think was.
No, no.
I thought you said.
No,
Yeah, I
not
did.
this one.
I could be wrong. but-
No, not this one.
So we don't
I think
don't
we
have to ask the
concur with
police?
what law has.
I'd like-
Well, you could
I'd
ask
like
them.
to-
You could certainly ask the police.
I would like, you know, just your thoughts, you know, either lieutenant or chief on this, you know, what your thoughts are on something
For
like this.
click and go.
Well, I do think that it's, definitely something, the online revolution is not gonna go away. But I believe that, in my opinion, there should be some structure associated with it, so we know what the rules of the game are.
That's good. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, thanks.
Is that 1 thumb or 2?
Motion to return it
To hold this,
To hold it and have the staff.
To hold the application,
Okay,
refer to staff to bring back the click and collect ordinance.
Yep, we need to make 2 motions, or can we put that all in one?
It can be one.
Okay. We have a motion to hold this and bring back the ordinance back to life. It's alive!
Do you want to hold the application until the ordinance is in place?
Yes.
To hold the application until.
I think we need to do the ordinance first.
Second?
Okay, motion by Alder Vanderleest, second by Alder Stevens. We'll give staff a minute here.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. So, this will be on hold, we'll bring back the ordinance, we'll go through the ordinance, and then probably that same time we do the ordinance, if that passes, we can do this as well.
All right. Okay. Item 5.
We are on to number 5. Consideration with possible action on an application for an available Class B combination license for Everardo Curiel. I don't know if that's Hispanic or not, but
Close enough.
yep, I made it Hispanic, at 1657 Main Street, previously licensed in the 2016-17 license year as Nick's Bar. That's quite the change. Staff?
The law department has no objections. This is in a moratorium area set by resolution. However, the establishment will be a restaurant, so they qualify for an exemption.
No objections.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Alder Vanderleest, second by Alder Steuer. All in favor of that? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes.
And number 6.
Consideration with possible action on an application for a Class B combination license for Titletown Tobacco LLC at 159 North Broadway, currently Prohibition Spirits LLC. Staff?
Staff has no objections. Our understanding is that the licensee is just changing the legal entity name from Prohibition Spirits LLC to Titletown Tobacco. The establishment remains the same, as does the management and the same agent.
We can concur.
Good. Okay.
Motion to approve.
No more prohibition? I think you're prohibited from doing that, aren't you? Motion to approve by Alder Steuer, second by Alder Stevens. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Good luck, Titletown. Item number, item number 7. Consideration with possible action on an application for an available Class B combination license for Amphora Wine Bar LLC at 131 North Broadway with a license description as bar area, seating area, back bar area, and storage in the basement on 131 North Broadway. Staff?
Yes, so this establishment would be in the Broadway moratorium
Mhm.
area set by resolution, which again is discretionary, not compulsory, as it's not an ordinance. The applicant did indicate that small plates and appetizers would be served. However, they did not provide any information or evidence to indicate that the principal business would be that of a restaurant, as is required by the resolution that establishes the moratorium. They meet the revised state statutory definition of a restaurant under 12502. Which no longer requires it, requires food service to be the predominant activity. However, as a restaurant under 12502, it still needs to be the principal business of the establishment in order to meet the exception set by the resolution.
Okay, now that resolution is an advisory, correct?
Correct.
And if we voted for this, it would need 3/4 vote from the council?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't believe the moratorium sets that requirement
Okay.
for the resolution itself.
Is there anyone
So-
here for?
Oh, go ahead.
What?
Yeah, go ahead.
Anyone here for-
Motion open the floor.
Motion over the floor by Alder Steuer, second by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That floor is now open, and you filled out a,
Yep, that one here.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, your name and address, please?
Trevor Commons, 1105 Close Street, Green Bay. I'm currently a registered agent at 2 other bars in town here, being Ned Kelly's and Frets and Friends. My partner at Ned Kelly's recently acquired that property on Broadway Street, and we want to open up a wine bar. It has a kitchen currently. The language on how much food we're going to serve is kind of tough right now because we're not open. So whether we're going to have 50% in sales and food or 50% in wine, we don't know yet. But I believe the moratorium or referendum was to clean up Broadway. This is a wine bar with fancy food, casual to upscale clientele. I don't think we're going to have a whole lot of issues.
Okay.
I can say more if you have more questions, but. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone here to speak, anyone else here to speak on this? Make sure you fill out a form if you haven't filled one out, and your name and address, please.
Absolutely, sir. My name is Tony Spencer. Pardon me.
I know you got to start talking, yeah.
I reside at 1144 Stewart Street. I would like to support everything Trevor just said. I personally work at a more upscale bourbon bar with a restaurant. Our clientele is not the kind of people that bring trouble to any neighborhoods. I would just like to speak out in favor of their goals. Given that they want to become a wine bar with fancy food. The kind of clientele that comes into there is not a trouble to the community. In fact, helps boost the local economy. That's all.
Question? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak on this?
Motion, close the floor.
Motion to close the floor by Alder Stevens.
Second.
Second by Alder Steuer. All in favor of closing the floor? Aye. Opposed? The floor is now closed.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the who closed.
Stevens made the motion. Alder Steuer seconded.
Okay, thank you.
Question, Nickel? Gentlemen, any thoughts on this?
Motion approved.
Motion to approve by Alder Stevens.
One, before we move on to the motion, I did notice that they were asking for, maybe I'm mistaken, asking for a patio area.
It looks like
Is that
a,
part of the application?
yeah, bare area, seating area. I'm assuming that's outside.
I do not believe they provided any information as to what that patio area would look like and whether it would comply with our ordinance regulations.
Has,
So at that point,
right.
if they don't have that information, I would suggest holding it until the next meeting so that they can submit that. To decide whether the committee has to recommend approval, waiving the requirements or not.
I'm gonna make a quick question before, but have you met with the police department at all to come up with a site plan?
Yep.
And you have a site plan? Do we have?
I'll have to talk to Officer Allen
Okay.
to go over a security plan.
Security plan, but not a site plan?
No, we are planning on removing part of the roof, and then, which would expose a patio area. But because it's not a patio area yet, and I'm applying for a liquor license, I didn't claim patio area, because verbiage gets a little confusing and very specific when you're applying for liquor licenses.
Wouldn't you still have to go through the community development department to get a site plan? You'd still need that.
Well, you know, we have a bunch of questions. We should probably open the floor. Sorry,
Yeah, let's do
I
that.
should have done that.
That's fine.
I got a couple.
Motion open the floor.
Motion floor by Alder Steuer. Second by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, let's just.
Make it official. Let's do it right.
Commons 1105 Klaus Street
Yep,
again.
yep,
In the initial plan that I turned into the city, we had pictures of what the current property looks like. We met with an architect, and renovations are in the works, or not, we can't actually access the building until November 1st. So we have plans. Architect is still actually working on more plans. But yes, there will be a patio. And I guess I don't know what else I need to do to.
Yeah, okay, I think, yeah, you should probably meet with the police department.
Well, so you're not including a patio area as part of your license at this point. You would be seeking for a change of premise to include an outdoor seating area at a later time once it's actually constructed.
Correct.
I just wanted to.
Oh.
Yeah, yes.
Oh,
So
okay.
applying for.
You don't want it right now?
We don't want it right now.
Now it's
Winter.
just the bar area, seating area, back bar area, and storage in the basement.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
There's a basement?
Basement just for storage. You don't want to go down there.
Randy would.
Yeah, okay. Motion to close the floor by Alder Stevens.
Second.
Second by Alder Steuer. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, well, with that information,
Motion to approve.
motion to approve by Alder Stevens.
I'll second.
Second by Alder Steuer. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. It'll go to council and.
One quick question for our attorney.
Sure.
Before this establishment will open, will there be an inspection, a city inspection done?
Yes, so inspections has to sign off before the clerk's office can issue the license. So if it's granted at council, it still has to go through inspections. first. So inspections just have to sign off on electrical and plumbing and all that before the license is issued by the clerk's office.
That just, the applicant will know that as well then.
Yes.
Yeah, that's standard procedure.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
We are on to number 8, consideration with possible action on an appeal by Evelyn Buford to the denial of his operator license. Staff, we have.
Should say his or her?
Yes, so you do have a denial memo that lays out the details. The law department does recommend denial based on multiple prior convictions for offenses that substantially relate as they indicate a propensity for repeated criminal behavior and indicate that the applicant is a habitual law offender and therefore disqualified under Chapter 125. Additionally, she does have a felony conviction and 2 subsequent probation violations for that felony.
We concur.
Motion to, I'm sure there's someone here for this. Yes, motion to open the floor by Alder Steuer, second by Alder Stevens, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the floor is now open, please come up, step your name and address, and make sure you fill out a form when.
Evelyn Buford, 1725 Apartment 8, Western Avenue. That's my past. Everybody's got past. Everybody's changed since then, and I've changed since then, and I don't drink anymore. That's one reason why my bartender hired me, because I don't drink, and I do give people rides home when they do drink and everything. And for example, this is an example. I'm not using names because we had a bartender there previously, recently, within the last 2 months, who has 2 drunk drivings, hit and run, who went to jail, who got out of jail on the bracelet with a blower, who came back to our establishment, bartended, who messed up, who's back in jail, serving the rest of her time, which I don't know why I didn't pull her license for doing crazy drunk driving on her 3rd offense. And mine's been since 2014. And my violations on probation was, my husband at the time was deceitful with me, and I lived beside a bar, so I go over there, I order food, he sees me in a bar, he called my probation officer. I go in there just to get my food and go home. And I changed since then. I don't drink. I got a letter from the owner of the bar. She couldn't be here. She's on vacation.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
I'm just asking for a second chance.
Start this way. Anything else? Okay, any questions?
Are you currently on probation, ma'am?
No, I've been dismissed from 2014.
Okay.
And you're,
That's not.
you're not, right, yeah, sorry. You're renewing the license, or is this isn't the renewal, right? It's
No, it's a new application.
new application, okay. But you had had a
I
license
served-
before?
Yeah, in the past, like 10, 15 years ago. I used to bartend at Studio East when it was open, back in Diane's in Oneida when it was open, back in the day, and I just got messed up in the wrong crowds back in the past, and I had a fiance I met back in 2013. I straightened my life out. He just passed away in 2016. I just recently moved back up here, 2017. Got back with a recent boyfriend and met Lori, and I even clean the bar in the mornings there. So I don't drink and and yeah.
Well, so where's the establishment that you're at?
A Slammer, 9th Street, the old Carol's.
So, I mean, right now you can serve if you have the owner there, correct?
I have my provisionals until the 4th of November.
And then after that,
After that, I can't.
okay. That's all I have.
Anything else then?
Your second chance.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Motion to close the floor.
By Alder Stoyer, second by Alder Stevens, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? What are you thinking?
She answered my question, so motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Alder Stevens.
I feel good about it too. Second.
Second by Alder Stoyer, yes, I think we've been down this path many times where people had a rough beginning and they straightened out and she's been good for 4 years here now. She's not on probation. She's got a wonderful letter from her employer. Gosh, time flies.
That's right.
So I have no problem with this either. Any other discussion?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this passes unanimously. Go on to council next Tuesday.
Do you want your letter?
Do we,
It's up to the committee whether you want to make it part of the record or.
we could make it a part of the record.
Okay.
Yep, I think so. Are we ready for 9 or?
Yes.
Second. There we are.
Now we are, okay. Discussion with possible action on General Ordinance 27-18, amending Section 27.902, subsection 2, Green Bay Municipal Code relating to penalties for marijuana possession previously discussed at the October 8th Protection and Policy Meeting. Staff, I see you've made a few changes.
We have. So, the committee previously requested staff to amend the ordinance to increase the grams amount from 25 to 28, and to include community service as a penalty option in lieu of or in conjunction with the fine. Those changes have been made. Additionally, the committee also requested staff to provide a proposed fine structure that differentiated between possessions in private versus public. Staff has made that change, providing that possession of no more than 28 grams in a private residence shall be subject to a forfeiture of no less than $1 and no more than $250, and possession of no more than 28 grams in a public place shall be subject to a forfeiture of no less than $1 and no more than $500. And further, staff did look into the last requested change regarding exempting marijuana paraphernalia. Staff did consult PD, specifically with drug task force officers, who indicated that it would be very difficult to distinguish drug paraphernalia used only for marijuana from paraphernalia used for other controlled substances. Most, if not all, paraphernalia that is commonly used to consume marijuana can also be used to consume other types of drugs. Not only would it be difficult to distinguish between the types of paraphernalia in the ordinances, it would be very difficult for law enforcement to make those determinations in the field. This would involve more evidence having to be tested, which can be time-consuming and cost-prohibitive. We did reach out to the district attorney, but did not hear back as of today's meeting regarding their input as well. And I think that covers the changes.
Okay, thank you. Anything from the police department on this?
I don't believe the police department has an opinion on this. We will enforce whatever the committee decides that we will.
Okay.
And honestly, I don't think it's gonna cause much of a change in what we do. I think we'll have probably the same number of arrests or same amount of arrests. I have some arrest statistics here, and I don't really see that changing based on changing the size of the fines.
And the changes, I mean, I could see how if we included paraphernalia, that becomes problematical. What we got here is, as far as procedures, is not
I
good.
don't think it's gonna affect the police department and how many arrests we make or what we do. I always like to get the idea of giving our guys a little bit more discretion when it comes to changing it from just an ordinance violation to a criminal violation. And I think you'll probably see a decrease in the number of criminal violations, and probably an increase in the number of ordinance violations, but I don't think you'll see a significant decrease in arrests. Just parenthetically, we had 775 arrests all last year. We're looking at 759 as of middle of September, so we're on track to do even a little bit more than we had last year.
Okay. So the district attorney's concern about that it would have the opposite effect of officers actually writing more criminal for, I'm not sure what reason he gave, maybe that officers would feel we're being too light on offenders or something, or I'm not sure why you're not picking that up vibe at all, so to speak, Shelley? You expect officers to,
Personally, I'd expect officers to write about the same number of citations or arrest the same number of people as they did last year.
but mostly city ordinance?
I would say there'd be more, giving the officers more discretion. I would expect to see more ordinance violations and fewer criminal violations.
And you still have that discretion, so if you feel it's criminal, but you go criminal, so. Yep.
Piggybacking on that a little bit, I guess, you know, one of the concerns we had at the committee, I think, or at least myself, was thinking of, you know, the court, you know, tying up the courts, you know, and I think, you know, we have quite a bit of that, and I know the DA is not here to talk about that, but I think that was one of the concerns I know I had. You know, and you're saying, and I realize, Chief, that, you know, when I called you and talked to you about it, and you were saying that we legislate and you'll just deal with what the results are for that. It would be nice, I guess, opinion-wise, I mean, we were kind of reaching out a little bit to the police department, you know, because you're the ones that deal with it. And, you know, I understand, you know, the scandal coming forward, you know, deciding, okay, let's reduce it a little bit. There seemed to be some concessions have been made, you know, with the amount that was talked about, and then the discretion of whether it's in the home or on a public spot. So there has been some compromise with this, but with that being said, you know, I've had a little bit of pushback from some of my citizens. They feel that it should stay the same. So those are always tough ones to deal with, and a lot of times I'll deal with my citizenry and they'll tell me, you know, how we should go. But I'm just more or less stating that out. You know, I was just looking for an opinion from you, but I understand where you're coming from.
You know, the whole world would be easier for us if there was no such thing as marijuana. We wouldn't have to worry about people driving under the influence and all these arrests. We have other bigger fish to fry, so to speak. But that's the world we live in now, and it sure seems like this train is going down the tracks, looking at California, looking at Colorado, and now looking at what they're doing in Canada. The public and our elected officials seem to be heading down that track, and we will do as you legislate, and we'll enforce the laws as they're written.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
I'd like to weigh in on it.
You go right ahead.
I got an article that's out of the Green Bay Press Gazette. It says Sheriff DA weigh in on Green Bay weed fines. Police and prosecutors have reservations about proposals to reduce fines and penalties for possession of marijuana, but are largely stayed in the sidelines as committee debates the issue. Yet Brown County Sheriff John Gossage, in an interview, called it alarming that the city would consider reducing penalties, and he shared a concern of Brown County District Attorney David Lassay that reduced penalties could send the wrong message to young people. It seems like when you lessen a fine, you're not condoning the activity, but you're saying it's not something we see as a big concern in the community, Gossage said. As a sheriff, my responsibility is to the public safety for the entire county, including the Green Bay. If it's legalized or they reduce the fines, we'll continue to enforce those laws. But when it comes to myself as a taxpayer and a father, and kids operating vehicles under the influence, that impacts the overall public safety of Brown County, and that's where I have to offer up my opinion. There's a little article here about Randy as well in this, it says, Alderman Randy Scannell has proposed cutting the fines for simple possession, which is treated as a city ordinance violation, from $1,000 to $500, removing driver's license suspension and penalties, adding community service as a sentence of option, and increase the maximum weight that falls under the ordinance from 25 grams to 28 grams. His proposal would also remove a provision that requires anyone caught with marijuana who has a previous drug conviction to be referred to criminal prosecution. Last week, the committee voted 3-1 in favor of 2 changes to the ordinance, raising the weight from 28 to 28 grams. It says Alderman John Van Loos, who voted against both changes and opposed Scannell's proposal, shared reaction from Lassay and Gossage to back up his stance that a $1,000 fine works as a deterrent, and that law enforcement has a handle on the issue. In an email to Vanderleest, Lassay said he's concerned the changes could be interpreted as discriminating possession of marijuana, particularly for young people, as I believe there are quite a few studies that demonstrate the negative effects of marijuana usage, especially for adolescents. In the interview, Lassay said previously directed police departments and sheriff's departments to issue municipal citations instead of criminal charges for residents found with small amounts of marijuana. He said reducing the fines would change how police officers view the possession of marijuana in instant, especially in the community like Green Bay that could opt for criminal charges out of concern that a $500 fine would not be enough punishment. The larger fine rate gives officers more discretion to fine them rather than refer to criminal charges, Lassay said. If an extra tool in the law enforcement belt, especially in Green Bay where they have more serious cases to work. Scandals counters that reducing fines does not tell kids it's okay to use marijuana. He said his aim is to bring the fines in line with severity of the offense. The fines are totally out of proportion to the offense, he said. This would not encourage teen use. It's illegal where we're not talking about making this okay for teens. Lassay's possession of marijuana penalties and decriminalization are ultimately legislative issues, but it's important for the police to have options when enforcing the law. I want the committee to understand that how it fits into the larger picture, how Green Bay changes could have the opposite effect, he said. My concern is the lower fines would shift more work to criminal courts. The Green Bay Police Department has declined to comment on proposal changes. According to the information presented to the committee, Green Bay Police have issued 336 citations for the possession of marijuana since January 1. They might be wrong on their number there on the bottom there. It says 336 citations. I think the chief said it was 700.
Yep. And we had that information last time.
And also another little thought is, what kind of message are we sending to our community? I think we have a drug problem in the city of Green Bay, in the Brown County overall as a whole. And I don't support reducing the fine down to $500. I think that the DA and the Sheriff Gossage, they handle the drug courts and things. I think they have a handle on how they'd like to see it. And according to the input we had from the Green Bay Police Department, we're not looking to slap the $1,000 fine on everybody that's apprehended for these charges. So I think that the Green Bay Police is doing a good job as far as how they're handling it. And I'm not in favor of the changes. I feel that the marijuana is a gateway drug to other drugs, especially for young people, college-age people. I'm for keeping the ordinance as is, and I think that, just like they stated, the DA stated and the sheriff stated, that it's a tool for law enforcement and a deterrent as well. So that's my thoughts, and I'm not supporting the change.
So you don't even want to change the second offense, that it automatically goes to criminal court in our ordinance? Which would tie up the criminal courts.
I'm not looking to change the ordinance. I feel that law enforcement is doing a good job at this point. I haven't had anybody in my district call me and say that, we want to reduce all these fines and we want to change the ordinance. I feel that I haven't had anybody call me saying that they'd like to see a change. So I'm just to leave the ordinance as is.
Okay. Any other comments?
That's it. Thank you.
Well, I'll piggyback a little bit on that. I would like, for some citizens here,
Yep.
I'd like to hear from them first.
Certainly.
So I'll motion open the floor.
Motion open the floor by Alder Steuer. Seconded by Alder Scannell.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, the floor is now open. Please state your name and address and fill out the form if you haven't filled it out.
Already filled.
Figured.
Good evening. I'm Don Radford, 408 South Van Buren Street, Green Bay, Apartment 1. First up, I'd just like to thank the committee and everyone else who's worked on this thing. They've been quite thoughtful. Certainly considered our input. I'm grateful for that. This is shaping up to be quite a comprehensive measure. So much so that I don't think I'd be exaggerating if I said you might be crafting a model for the rest of the state. I have heard some concerns mentioned about all this stuff. Recurring concerns. The term gateway keeps coming up. gateway theory has been so thoroughly debunked, the DEA does not even cite gateway theory anymore. It's considered a joke, quite frankly. I've heard a lot of concerns about, studies about teenagers using marijuana. Generally, what I found when I dig into this is these studies are based on surveys which are predicated on two presumptions I find quite laughable. One, that teenagers always tell the truth when presented with the opportunity to incriminate themselves. And second, that they do not become distracted when put alone in a room with a computer. I just have real problems with that. We're not talking about making anything legal for children, even with full legalization. And speaking of full legalization, I would hope each and everyone in here would be aware that when we propose to make marijuana legal for general adult use, we're talking about putting every black market dealer in the state out of business. Making the points of sale known locations where enforcement can conduct compliance checks. This is the whole idea. All right. Beyond that, we're talking about a lot of questions now that are more germane to the discussion of legalization. So in the interest of time, I'll simply state that if anyone wants to discuss this further, I will make myself available. All right. Beyond that, I would be thrilled to see this go to full council tonight. It's a great piece of work. I'm truly impressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate your input. You've been helpful. Question? Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Absolutely.
Name and address one more time.
Of course. Tony Spencer, 1144 Stewart Street. I'm not really sure where to begin right now. I came here understanding the amendments proposed from the last PMP council, committee meeting. These things seem to have been approved. The maximum amount being 28 grams, not 25. Whereas my personal and the goal of several people I represent being a $0 fine in the home, not succeeding, a lesser fine for private use and possession of up to 28 grams, which equivalates to 1 ounce, because for some reason the US doesn't use the metric system. Seems fair. It does. To tack on a non-mandatory criminal charge for a second and subsequent offense, that being to police discretion for any user who is caught another time, not automatically being a felon, which, under current state law, a second offense is an automatic felony. So whoever stands before me here tonight, or stands at the Common Council when this comes up, is saying that any person caught more than once possessing marijuana is automatically a felon and their life forever ruined, given the label of a felon for no more than possessing less than 1 ounce of marijuana. These two changes I find acceptable. Alder Evangelist, I will speak directly to you. I really do not understand your issue. I understand many reasons why you might be apprehensive. It being a gateway is patently false, and I encourage you to research more data. This data, I will be happy, and many of my supporters will be happy to provide at a full council meeting. This being said, I feel many of the things you've cited are
Please
stalled.
address the chair.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel that Alder Vanderleest, many of the things he has said have installed tactics to keep it away from the common council. Alder Stoyer has said to me personally, and has said to this committee and the public, that he relies on the opinion of his constituents. That being said, a number of the constituents, a great number of the constituents who are legal voters, whether they have never been convicted or have been convicted and have since had their voting rights reinstated and no longer know that they are able to vote, are in favor of this. Those people specifically are not likely to call their representatives. This is why myself, why Dawn, and why many of the people who have come up to this podium and spoken out in favor are here. These people don't know they have a voice. We are their voice. So it may not be coming from your district, or from yours, or yours, or yours. But we are here. This is not legalization. This is freeing up the time of the police department. This is freeing up the time of the municipal court. This is freeing up the DA's office for making felons and ruining lives out of people who do something that is of a very low priority nationally. And again, I do not have these statistics right now. I'll be happy to provide them at Common Council. But nationally, these are not priority offenses. Alder Vanderleest believes there is a drug problem in this state, maybe even this county. If that is the case, there are far more dangerous drugs out there. Despite what Alder Vanderleest proposed.
It would be best not to call alders by name, just address
Sorry.
what has been said
Okay.
and address,
Thank you, Alder Scannell.
Yeah.
Despite what was proposed at the last P&B meeting about marijuana being potentially dangerous to teenage brains, many more studies have shown marijuana to be safe, effective, and therapeutic in many ways. With all the info out there, this should not be a priority of the city. I'm not proposing that you de facto legalize. I'm proposing that you prioritize if your issue as a council, as a city, is drug enforcement. Let us look at the drugs that actually cause harm. Up to 28 grams is reasonable. In your home, a lower fine is reasonable. This is a place, it seems like, majority of us, both you as a council and us as the public, can agree to. That being said, any argument from any one of you or anyone else, any one of your colleagues, to stall this, to delay this, back to staff, which means back to committee, and not bring it in front of the full representation of the city, is a stall tactic and something intentionally, in my own opinion, targeted on delaying any action, good or ill, on this issue. I believe there is support in the city of Green Bay for this matter. Not legalizing, reducing fines, up to $500 for public use, up to $250 for private use, up to 28 grams across the board. These are things that will be debated, even at full council. They will be. You should all know this. You should. Because I don't believe any one of you to be unintelligent people. That being said, let's put it up to the city. Let us not stall. Let us not delay. Let us not scare. Let us not dissuade in any way. Let us not distract. Let us not use any rhetorical point that might get off the truth. This is not a priority. The police department has said this many times. This is not their priority. Let us lower the offense. Let us make this easier on our citizenry. Let us do the right thing. That's all I have to say.
Question? Sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Anyone else on this? Motion goes to the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The floor is now closed. I would like to see about possibly making one small amendment, depending upon staff's input. I'd like to change possession of marijuana to possession of cannabis. Does that create any kind of legal issue with state or anything?
It may, we would have to look into, off the top of my head, I don't know what the distinction would be between cannabis and marijuana.
I believe it's just another name for the same product. I mean, that's one reason why I'd like to change it if possible. It's not going to make things too complicated because marijuana has many names in many languages.
Review the impact of that before we could, I'm not sure if there would be any kind of impact, to be consistent with other ordinances, other state statute references. The suggestion would be to stay with marijuana.
All right, then that's fine. I'm not gonna, it's not that big an issue. I just thought cannabis is better, and I still feel that way, but it's not that big an issue. So I withdraw that possible amendment.
I also see a change here too.
Yes?
When we sent it back, it was privately owned residence, now it's private residence.
Yes, so we wouldn't be able to have it set up just to apply to privately owned residences, because then we would be discriminating in between renters and people who own homes.
Anything more on that? Questions or comments? Okay. Anything else?
I think there's a lot to be said. I did have a chance to talk to Tony a couple times, and you know, I went to school in Madison in the '70s, you know, so I understand some things. I guess all I'm trying to say is that as you know, I think one of the concerns I have is the safety issue. I do have a concern about that. So whether you're drinking or smoking marijuana and you get behind a vehicle, you know, you are going to be altered in some way. So that's just, I think, one of the things that concerns me as far as the safety issue. If you want to retort to that, and we can't, let me just finish and then we can do that. So I understand Alder Vanderleest's comments. You know, I've talked to him about that as well. And I also understand Alder Scannell, where he's coming from. We will debate this at council. This is just a recommendation, so believe me, we will hash that out. I did vote, you know, for the lower fine in committee previously. I'm a little on the fence right now, I will admit, because I've talked to some other folks about this as well. So if we open the floor again, we can talk about that a little bit, but I'm on the fence right now on this as far as committee. I think there were some good changes here, but still trying to figure out, we're not trying to legalize anything here. We understand that. And I'm glad at least you folks have looked at that from that point. And a lot of times when we talk about situations like this, we're looking for possibly some type of compromise. I had hoped from our police department that we get a little more emphasis that way. I know the county has come forward and talked about that as well. So a lot of times when we're trying to make decisions, we're just trying to get the information from all parties. So that's all for my ramble right now. And that's it.
Well, then I'm going to wrap it up and we'll vote. This whole thing started with a community discussion that I had. Many of those were self-medicating, and between a rock and a hard place. They didn't like that they were breaking the law, but they did not like being in pain. So it was their anxiety about the way the law is written, in particular, and for me this is the fundamental issue, both the second offense automatically going to criminal court, which ties up our criminal courts, which makes this a felony for people on their second offense. It seems totally unfair and inappropriate. Our society has changed. There was a time that marijuana was very much a part of the cultural war, and that's why I think you see provisions like a suspension of driver's license, which is just terribly punitive and definitely no longer appropriate. But there's no other law that does that I'm aware of. I've talked to staff, they weren't aware of any other law. That as a matter of law, that's a possibility. That has nothing to do with a moving violation and you could lose your license. So I think our society is changing on this. I think our practices are changing on this. What we're doing here is nothing more than what is currently basically going on. Fines are reduced in court. The main purpose for this for me is to drive this away from criminal court, not put felony records on people. That's totally unfair. To remove the driver's license suspension, that's totally inappropriate. And to move this to municipal court. And when it comes to municipal court, what we want to do is avoid going to court. So we want to make a fine that's steep enough to plea bargain, induce a plea bargain, and keep this out of our municipal court. And talking with the judges and our staff, I believe the $500 maximum still does that. So as a practical ordinance, I think this does the trick. I think it's fair. I think it takes in current realities. We have legalization, actual legalization in Canada, in Minnesota, in Michigan. We are surrounded by it. This is an issue that's going to affect our state, going to keep affecting our state. We're going to have to deal with this. I believe to deal with it fairly and practically. And basically, what we're doing here, for the most part, is the way we are handling it. This isn't a radical change. I think we're just making the law reflect what we're doing and ensuring that our law is fair by removing onerous provisions. So I fully appreciate everyone who's put their input in on this. I spent a lot of time before we brought this forward talking to staff, police, the courts, and citizens who are concerned. There's been a lot of hands working on this, and I think this is a good document, and I appreciate everyone who helped me make it, or help us make it. With that, I'll wrap it up, and let's take a vote. We better do this on the board.
Do we have a motion and a second?
Oh, is there a motion to adopt?
Motion.
Motion to adopt by Alder Stevens.
I will second.
Seconded by Alder Stoyer.
And the vote started.
So a yes vote is,
A yes vote says we make the changes. And there's still time for whatever at council.
It's not coming up on my computer here.
It's not, and how would you like to vote all the things?
Be a nay for me. Thank you.
Did it come up for you?
No, it didn't. I will vote yes.
Yes? All right, that motion passed, carried on a vote for 3-1 with Alder Vandelis voting no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
We're on number 10.
I gotta get that. All right. Item number 10, consideration with possible action on a request by Alder Scannell that the advisory committee be dissolved and any item still on its agenda be placed on protection policy committee agenda. Staff, is there anything on the agenda that's still hanging?
Not that I'm aware of. If there would be anything,
No?
there isn't. No.
Oh, okay.
As far as dissolving the advisory committee, we would just need this referred to staff to make the proposed ordinance amendments, and then we can bring that back to the committee.
Okay.
I believe it would just change a couple provisions in, I'm not sure what chapter, that basically establishes advisory. We would just delete those and pass the amended ordinance.
So I brought this forward basically because in all practical purposes, this committee has taken over the advisory committee's role. And I did that because I thought it was more practical to have a standing committee address these things and have issues hanging out there forever and ever. When they were with advisory, we had trouble getting quorums and things just seem to hang and hang. This seems much more efficient. And but this is still in our ordinance. The advisory committee is still in our ordinance, and I don't think that we should clean up our books. And that's why I brought this forward. So,
I think with that being said, I mean, I think there's always this, I won't even say power, but, the fact that it is a standing committee, I'm fine with that. I think when the advisory committee was first set up, I had some concerns about that. I thought that too many personalities were involved that got away from what we should be doing. And if our committee can handle that, I would be fine with that.
Motion to return it to staff.
a motion by Alder Vanderleest to kick it to staff, seconded by Alder Stevens. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, staff. We have liquor violation report from the police department for October 22nd, 2018. Spotlight.
There were no violations.
Nice.
Click. That was quick. Thank you very much, sir. Well done. I now know that's due to our law enforcement. You did an excellent job.
Yes. Motion to receive and place on file.
Motion to receive and place on file by Alder Vanderleest. Second by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That received and placed on file. We ready to?
One sec.
Adjourn it, as you would say.
I would say adjourn it.
I'm gonna start speaking
Yes.
differently now.
We are ready to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn it.
Motion to adjourn by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Stoyer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you. This was fun, wasn't it?
It was fun.
Remember to log out now. You got to go to
Leave the meeting.
leave the meeting. Go to your agendas,
Go to the
click on it.
principal.